This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Good morning, everyone. Tainas Esther, the Maharil, the backbone of Minhag Ashkenaz, had a very unusual custom on Tainas Esther. He did not say the shir. He was not magid the halacha on Tainas Esther, and as brought by the Magen Avraham and Simon Tafresh Pevav Sivkata and Gimel. And he found a remez to this in the Megillah. Ein Esther magedes asama v'esama. So, since the Megillah says Ein Esther magedes, the Maharil was not magid the shir on Tainas Esther. Furthermore, why do we attribute this fast to Esther? Why not Tainas Mordechai? Why specifically is it associated with Esther? Now, the pasuk says that in the times of Purim, Esther commanded, Lech kinais as kol hayudim hanimtzim b'Shushan v'tzumo alai. Why did only Esther fast? 3 days. Why didn't Mordechai make this enactment? Why didn't the Sanhedrin make this enactment? In other words, Esther was the one who petitioned that everyone should fast. Esther said, so later on, Mordechai accedes to Esther's request. It says, "Vayavar Mordechai vayaskecha asher tzivsa alav Esther." That Mordechai did everything Esther commanded him, which implies Esther was the one who enacted the fast, who suggested the fast, and Mordechai went along with it. But why did Mordechai only go along with it? Why didn't he enact the fast? Why didn't the Asher Knesset Agdol enact the fast? However, says the Klausenberger Rebbe in the Shefa Chaim on Purim page Reish Tes Vav, we paskin Yordesim and Reish Mem Hesef Yod Zayin that someone who teaches Torah should not stay up too late at night, should not afflict themselves, is not allowed to fast, because all of these things are mema'it melecha shamayim. They diminish one's ability to teach and to learn Torah. The fasting weakens the mind, weakens the head. It causes bittul Torah, especially to be able to paskin lahalach. It's kemat impossible to paskin if a person is fasting. We find in Bava Kama Daf Ayin Beis that a Amoira did not paskin in the evening because he didn't eat meat. In other words, not only cannot one not paskin if they didn't eat, if one did not eat very nourishing and substantial food, it's impossible to paskin. And therefore Mordechai the tzaddik was following a different pathway. Mordechai did not want to be mevatel gzeira with tefillah. Mordechai held we should be mevatel gzeira with Torah. And that's what the Gemara says in Megillah Daf Tes Zayin. Mordechai was sitting and learning Hilchos Kmitza, and Haman said, your fistful of the kaimitz of the mincha will push off my gezeira, because through Mordechai's koyach of psak, he was able to be mevatel gzeira, even if the gezeira, even if the decree was sealed with cement, Mordechai could be mevatel it b'koyach haTorah, and therefore he held one should not fast. Mordechai said better to be mekabel atainas dibur and to be oisek b'Torah than to fast and be memayidin limadat Torah. But the pasuk says vayavar Mordechai vayaskecha asher tzivsa alav Esther. Mordechai violated, meaning his own principles, and he did what Esther told him to do. As the Klausenberger Rebbe says, Esther was a Isha, not a Bnei Torah. She didn't appreciate this to that extent. And therefore, says the Klausenberger Rebbe, Mordechai's principle was, we're going to be Mavatal Gzeira B'Torah, and he deferred to the view of Esther. In fact, says the Klausenberger Rebbe, the Ibn Ezra says, why did Esther invite Achashverosh to the first party? And then at the first party she said, never mind, I'll see you again tomorrow at the second party. Why not either call the party immediately the second day or ask Achashverosh what she wants on the first day? Says the Klausenberger Rebbe, she thought maybe she would see a sign min Hashamayim that Hashem is accepting the fast of Klal Yisrael, but she didn't see any oisos min Hashamayim on day one, so she waited for day two. Says the Klausenberger Rebbe, could be if she would have followed the advice of Mordechai and be mevatel l'gzeira, not with tainus but with Torah, she would have seen a sign on the first day, and they wouldn't have had to wait till day two. The only reason they had to wait to day two is they chose to be mevatel l'gzeira b'tainus and not b'Torah. That is why, says the Klausenberger Rebbe, in the Paiskim we find there's more room for leniency on Tainas Esther than other Tanesim to indicate this fasting was secondary, was not really the best idea. The ikar way to be mevatel gzeira is to learn Torah. Therefore, says the Klausenberger Rebbe, possibly this is the reason why the Maharil did not teach the halacha shir on Tainas Esther, to indicate that on a fast day, the Maharil wanted everyone to see it's very hard to paskin. And the point was that this whole fast of Esther was against the will of Mordechai. It would have been better had they not fasted. It would have been better had they been able to learn and be mavatal the gzeira, believe in HaTorah. Says the Klausenberger Rebbe, when the Maharil would say his shir, thousands of malachim would come to hear the shir, and the words of Torah would go up before the Pamalya Shamala, and they would all be misameach. However, the Maharil wanted to indicate that we could have used this approach, but the whole Tainas Esther was to try to use a different mahalach, the mahalach of Esther, which Mordechai deferred to. This is the secret reason behind the mysterious practice of the Maharil. Why he did not say the halacha shir on Tainas Esther, Ein Esther Magedes. This is the tam ha-kamun for the practice of the Maharil. Wishing everyone an easy Tainis, and Be'ezus Hashem a freilichen Purim haba aleinu l'taiva.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.